Okay, this week we're going to work with inline frames, or most commonly known as iframes. Iframes are a way of being able to work with content and yet not having to go through a whole frame set or set up a whole frame set. And we'll talk about frame sets next week. But iframes allow us to go in and put in a frame on a web page that allows us to use that for content, for graphics, for images, for a lot of different things. This is a website that I put together that you'll see this content here has a couple of iframes. Two of them you can see and one you can't. This menu is in an iframe, and then this piece right here is also an iframe. So if I hit news, you'll notice that what we have here is text within this box. You can't see the box because the box is pretty well hidden because we've integrated the background into this box, the frame, the actual frame itself. This text is much different than this text, you'll notice, because this text has cascading style sheets applied to it. We have a scroll bar that we've set up in a style sheet, in a cascading style sheet, and we've given those parameters of what the scroll bar should look like, what the text looks like. In this one, what we've done is we've created a web page. Now, both of these are web pages that are showing up in this iframe. We've created a web page, and what we've done is we've put the text right here inside this iframe. So there's two different styles. We're going to work with this type of text today when we build our menu and our website today. So again, this is an iframe. This menu here is in an iframe, and these iframes actually hold a web page. You can't see it. It doesn't show up unless you look at the source coding. And then there's another one down here that we would use for navigation that I didn't set up, where it says bargains right here. If I were to click on bargains, you'll notice what happens here is this menu pops up, and we'll talk about that in a minute, why that's happening. But bargains, in this area, bargains here, we could have, if we were having something on sale, say this is a website that sells a product, we could have our clearance items or our bargains or our site of the week or anything right here basically, or an image. We could have images here. So this is one way iframes are used. We see them in things like photography websites, where we have a list of photos off to the side here. You click on them, and then in the content frame, or the iframe, the photo appears. So we'll talk more about that as we get further into this lesson. You'll recognize this from last semester last tutorial when we talked about building websites. We're actually going to build this website. We're going to put tables within tables, so hopefully you're comfortable after working through the table menus. And we're going to turn this big white space right here into an iframe. And all of these links right here will open up in this big white area. We're going to create this iframe. We're going to create these are rollovers that we're going to create in Photoshop. In fact, we're going to create the website in Photoshop. We're going to slice and dice it, and then we're going to put it in Dreamweaver. These buttons actually are sitting inside a table, inside this table here. So we actually have three sections here. We have the title, we have the site navigation, and then we have the open white space over here. And then you'll notice we have a little graphic down here. So we're going to go ahead and start this portion of the tutorial. We're going to be working in Photoshop again, and because I felt that what we wanted to do was be able to build a website completely from scratch and put our iframes in there. Iframes can be a little confusing, but once you get the hang of them, they're so easy to use, you'll probably never want to use a frame set again. Okay, so let's go into Photoshop. I'll be giving you these images to work with later, so we're going to go new, and remember, we're going to start at 800 by 600. We want to be able to take into account the toolbar, these toolbars, at the top here, the navigation bar, and any other these pieces. So this is an 800 by 600 website right here. We're going to center align this one because right now it's just left align, but we want to go ahead and center align it, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, and in this one I'm just going to call this my MBay cycling. Okay, I have it at 800 by 600. My background color is white. If I don't want that to be white, I can change that, and my resolution is 72. When we look at this website, you'll notice that the resolution turns out pretty well because it's all graphics. There's no photos in here, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, the other thing I need to do is go in and I'm going to create a couple of layers. I'm not going to worry about naming them yet because I just want to have them available when I need them. So go off to the side, go to new layer, and just add some layers in there. You'll notice that they're transparent because we have the checkerboard in the back there. Okay, I need to go in and open up my graphic here. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone to my web images in my folder, in my Dreamweaver folder, and I'm going to grab my cycling GIF here and I'm going to open it up. This is a graphic that I created. It's one we're going to be using in here in this website. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go select all. And I'm going to hit Control-C, copy, and I'm going to come over to back to my original web page, and I'm going to hit Control-V and paste it in. So you'll notice now it's on its own layer here. I have it off to the side, so I can use this image any way I want. We're going to use it as part of the title bar, remember. So I just went over to my Move tool here. I'm moving it over. It's a little big for our purposes though, so I'm going to go into Edit, Transform, and hit Scale, and it's going to, because I'm working on the layer with the image, it's going to transform that layer. I'm just going to go off to the corner here and pick this pick box. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and with my left mouse button I'm going to reduce this image somewhat. Okay, I can make it much larger if I want, so I'm just going to kind of try and eyeball it. Double click in the transform, and then we're going to move it up a little bit. That looks pretty good, so I'm happy with that. Remember that I can do some things with this. I can give it a shadow, and I think I want to. I'm going to go in, go to my blending options here, and we can look at the drop shadow, which would give us this little drop shadow. I kind of like to have things look like they have some dimension. Otherwise, it looks too flat on the screen, and that's not what I'm going for at this point. I really want to try and give it some dimension and give it a nice little look about it. Remember, we can double-click on that and open up that shadow box, and we can play with these. We can change the opacity if we want it to be very 100% opaque, or if we want to lighten the opacity and give it just a hint of shadow, we can do that. So this is pretty much up to you. The distance we can play with. We can, depending on how you want your website to look. What's the look you're going for? I just want to give it a little bit of a shadow, but if you're looking to really do some different things here, you can play with all of these controls right here. I'm going to just give it a distance. The spread, obviously, we can make it very dark. In fact, by playing with all of these controls, we can really change this graphic, the original graphic itself, just by playing with these controls. So you get to decide, working with the client, what it is, the look that you're going for, and then of course the size of the shadow. Do we want it to be very translucent, or do we want it to be harsh? And I'm really kind of going for a lighter, shadowy look. So the closer you get, the crisper the lines, the shadow becomes. The shadow becomes almost a second image, basically. So I'm just going to kind of lighten those. I want it to give it a different look. Once I start playing with that, though, that also affects how this all looks in reference to the distance. Okay. I also don't have to have it as a black shadow. I can pick a different color. I can go in and make it a red shadow. I can go in and make it pretty much any color I want on the spectrum there. Okay, so I'm just going to pretty much stay with black. Okay, once that's done, I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go ahead and lock this layer because once I start working with my layers, one of the things that I don't like to do is I don't like to play around with the layers. Once I've kind of decided how I want that look, it's time to just go in and leave it. Okay, the other thing I'm going to do is we've got some, I want to divide up my page. So I'm just going to come in here. You'll notice I have some options here. Oops. I can go in and have a elliptical marquee tool, a single row marquee, or a single column. Right now I'm just going to go in and I'm going to select a regular marquee tool. I don't want to select, you're probably going to say, well, why didn't you select the single row? I want this to be a little bigger than a single row, so I'm just going to kind of come in here. This gives me the ability to go in and I'm going to just kind of play with the horizontal rule. I have colors here set. I've got this red, this orange, and this blue, and so I want to go in and I'm going to change my layer to layer 1 because I want everything on its own layer. If I make a mistake, something happens, I can get rid of it. So everything's on its own layer. I'm going to come over to the paint bucket and I'm going to pick the blue because I want to stay within this color frame. And I'm just going to put kind of a horizontal rule in there. Again, I can go in once this is done, and I'm going to deselect this. I'm going to go in and play with this, give it some dimension. Go to my blending options again. Again, we can do a whole bunch of different things here. This is our bevel and emboss. Remember that we have this. We have a smooth bevel. We can go ahead and have it chisel hard, and you'll notice the change in the highlight here is what we're looking at. You'll notice that we've got this little indentation, so it's starting to give us a 3D look, and that's kind of where we want to go. If we have a soft chisel, it just kind of lightens everything, and again, the smooth looks like that. So the smooth gives us a little more white. Okay, and then we can change the depth. Again, notice as we start to move it, what's happening here. Okay, so again, it's pretty much up to you. What do you want it to look like? Now this is important because if we're trying to be graphically correct, I don't want it to be downward because that means my highlight is throwing up and then this shadow isn't going to work for me, so I want it up. I want my highlight on the top so that it gives me a better look. We can change the softness here. And notice that what that does is it's softening up the highlight and the shadow or the darkness underneath that. We don't have to have that. We can make some other changes. We can again put a drop shadow. I want you to be careful about how much you use though, because it's really easy to come in here and overdo all of these effects. So be careful. Try and work and do stuff that's going to be consistent, have a consistent look about it, and look nice. I'm going to leave the bevel and emboss on because I want to stay with that 3D look. If I don't have it, this is what it looks. Here's the graphic, and then I've got a little shadow, but I really want that kind of 3D option. And I'm going to leave the shadow. Okay, I'm going to leave that shadow in there. I'm going to hit OK. I want to move this a little bit, though, because it was off the page a little. I noticed that off to the side here it was off a little, and that means it's going to be off my web page as well. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to lock this layer too. Remember, once we lock them, a lot of times when we're playing with these effects, it affects all of the effects in every layer. So once you lock them, though, the effects are good. If you don't lock them, all the effects within the drawing or within the website is going to be affected. Okay, I want to do the same thing. I want to put another horizontal rule going down because I know I want my navigation to be on the left-hand side, so I'm going to do the same thing, except let's make sure we add a new layer. And I'm going to say vertical or vert rule. Hit OK. Remember, this was our horizontal rule. So I'm just going to say horiz rule, and then this is graphic. Okay, so I pretty much have everything labeled. Let's go to the vertical rule here. Same procedure. We're going to go in and select, give us enough room to go in and just kind of eyeball it. We're going to go in, do the same thing. Again, if we don't like the way this looks, we can make some changes. Okay, if we don't like the way this is looking, if it's too big, it's too small, it's an easy piece to change. So we don't have to worry about that. Is it big? It's probably too big, so I want to go back and I'm going to go ahead and just, whoops, I'm going to undo all this. Step back. And I'm just going to go back in and change this. I want to make it a little smaller because I don't want it to be too overbearing. I'm going to go back to my paint bucket. Oops. Go back to your vertical rule. Because once it was, that's why we got that symbol crossed out. It was because we were on the graphic symbol and we don't want to work in that. Okay, same situation here. I'm going to go ahead and deselect this, and I'm going to go and get some blending options. Okay. In this case, I may not want the blending option of the shadow. I want you to just kind of look at it and see what does it look like. We can, but the point, we need to be consistent though. If we're going to have shadow options, we need to really think about that. We need to see where our shading is. You know, are we having it straight up? Remember what I said about watching what happens in our shading options and our options. Notice what happened here is we're playing with these darn shading options here, so we've got to be careful. I can also, if I want to make some changes, remember we can make some changes as to what it looks like and the look that we're going for. If we don't want any of these, again, we don't have to have anything, but just kind of be consistent about the look that you are going for. Okay. Okay, so we need to put text in here. And again, on this page, you'll notice that we have these options here. The bike didn't have any shadow in the original one, but notice what our bicycle cruise text looks like. So we're going to go back to Photoshop, and we need to put in some text. And this is kind of one of those places where you're going to play with it. You're going to want it to be big. Let's start off with 60 and see where it puts us. This is probably not what the text we want to use. Excuse me. We can use pretty much any text we want because it's going to be a Photoshop graphic that we're going to be bringing into Dreamweaver, so you can be as creative as you want. There's some different text here that you'll notice the Lithos Pro was what we used for the Cycle Club. There's some different things you can use. I'm going to go with, we have Comic Sans here. We have comics, and remember this is our, and that's probably not what we want to be looking at or using, so I'm just going to go in here, and since I've already typed some text, I can go through and see what it's going to look like if I come in and make some changes. Do I like that? This becomes one of those situations where we need to look at what is the customer like. What's the customer want? Don't ever be surprised if when you put it up there, the customer goes, I hate it, I don't want it. So you kind of just want to look around and see what it is that looks good. What is it that's going to look good and work well with this website? I think I'm going to go back with the Comic Sans because I know once I start working with the Comic Sans and all of the things that it's going to be doing for me, I'm going to move this. I'm probably going to go in and change the size a little bit because it's just a little big. So I'm going to go over here, double click the T, that selects all that, and I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to change it to about 54. Not bad. Okay. And what did we call this website? Oh, Bicycle Cruises. Let's try that. Let's change that back. And we'll call it Yeah, Bicycle Cruises works okay. And then we can go back to that bigger font now. We can use it just a little bit bigger if we want. Because remember, this is a customer website. We want this stuff to stick out like a sore thumb. Sorta. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do now is I want to go in and put another, because it's Bicycle Cruises. We're going to make this smaller, obviously. I know it's not exactly the same. It is. Monterey Coast. So we're going to play with this. It's Bicycle Cruises on the Monterey Coast. And again, we can go in and we're going to play with both of these texts. So we're going to come in here. We want to, again, try and remember our blending options. Hit OK. Now, you know, I'm thinking we have some other options in the style here. I'm going to go bold, so it makes it a little bigger. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do the same thing with the text. I'm going to use my blending options here. We're not going to spend a lot of time here because we still have some. So this is Bicycle Cruises on the Monterey Coast. I'm not going to spend a lot of time playing around with this piece of it because we have the buttons that we still need to make, and I'm going to show you how to do those. It's kind of going to be a review, but we're going to use those buttons in the table, and so we're going to be working again. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, that's not too bad. We're going to go File, Save. And we're just going to say this is MBase Cycling. It tells me I'm going to turn some stuff off, and that's okay. I'm also going to save this for the web because I'm going to give it as a GIF, or I'm going to save it as a GIF. Down here it tells you if you're at 28K how long it's going to take to load this. I currently have it as some preset options. If I want to change them, I can. If I want to change my colors, all of these things, no transparency. I want to keep my transparencies. I'm going to hit Save, and I'm going to go to my Dream, go to my Web Images, and I'm just going to throw it down in here as my GIF. We will be going in and slicing and dicing this little puppy, so don't panic yet because we're not there yet. And remember, it's really easy to get it ready to slice and dice. Okay, if we go into Image Ready, and we can slice this puppy up pretty easily. You'll probably remember doing that from the other website when we did the tribal cycling. Okay, I'm going to stop the tutorial right here so that you can build this, and then we're going to go in and we're going to build the buttons. Then we're going to go in and slice this because it's important that we have it sliced a certain way. And then we're going to come back and put the whole thing together in Dreamweaver.